The wine you bought last week contains up to 70 different additives that don't have to be listed on the label. Chemicals and processing agents that are banned or restricted in Europe, but perfectly legal here in Canada. I've identified 7 brands that Canadians trust and buy every single day that are owned by just 3 massive corporations, using your lack of information against you, and the worst offender is probably sitting in your kitchen right now. I spent 3 months digging into the Canadian wine industry. I read Health Canada reports, I looked at ingredient documents, I reviewed company financial records. I compared our rules to what Europe, Australia, and New Zealand require. What I found made me angry. You're paying top dollar for cheap wine that's been loaded with hidden ingredients, controlled by a handful of giant companies and regulated far less than wine sold in almost any other rich country. By the end of this video, you'll never look at the wine aisle the same way. And I'm going to show you exactly what to buy instead. Real options that won't empty your wallet, but will give you what you actually think you're paying for. Here's what the wine industry doesn't want you to know. 3 big companies control 60% of all wine sold in Canada: Arterra Wines Canada, Andrew Peller Limited, and Constellation Brands. Arterra alone owns over 30 different brands. You think you're choosing between different wineries? You're not. You're just picking different labels owned by the same parent company. It's an illusion of choice. Now let's talk rules. Canada allows 70 different additives in wine. Europe allows about 60, but with much stricter limits on how much can be used. Australia makes companies list allergens. New Zealand requires ingredient labels. Canada? We require almost nothing except alcohol content and bottle size. You have no clue what you're actually drinking. Here's the price scam. Provincial liquor boards add huge markups. Federal taxes pile on top. Canadians pay some of the highest wine prices in the world, often 40 to 60% more than Americans pay for the exact same bottle. But even after accounting for taxes, the quality of what we get is worse. Wine companies know Canadian buyers can't easily compare prices or drive across the border like we used to. We're trapped, and they're taking advantage. One more thing. That product of Canada label, it might mean nothing. It could mean imported grape juice concentrate was mixed with water and fermented here. Under current rules, wine can say cellared in Canada if only 30% comes from Canadian grapes. The rest? Bulk wine shipped in giant containers from Chile, Argentina, or California, then mixed and bottled here. The Canadian wine market runs on keeping you in the dark. They make money because you don't know what you're really buying. I'm going to walk you through 7 wine brands sold in every Canadian liquor store. Brands you've seen, probably bought, maybe have at home right now. We're starting with the merely disappointing and working our way up to the brands that show everything broken about this industry. Let's begin. Let's start with number 7. Yellowtail. You know this one. The kangaroo on the label. It's been in Canadian stores since the early 2000s and never left. It's positioned as fun, easy, affordable wine from Australia. Here's what you're actually getting. Yellowtail is factory-made wine designed for mass appeal, which means one thing: sugar. Lots of it. Their Moscato has about 100 to 120 grams of sugar per liter. That's roughly 20 to 24 grams per glass. A can of Coke has 39 grams total. You're drinking nearly as much sugar in one glass of wine as you'd get in half a can of soda. Even their dry reds like Shiraz contain 8 to 12 grams per liter, way above what real winemakers consider dry. What does this mean for your health? Regular consumption leads to weight gain, blood sugar spikes, and increased inflammation. If you're watching your sugar intake, this wine is working against you. And the price? Canadians pay $13 to $16 for a bottle that Americans get for $6 to $7 US dollars. You're paying double for factory-produced grape juice with alcohol. Yellowtail is owned by Casella Family Brands, which makes over 12 million cases every year in a massive operation in New South Wales. This isn't winemaking, it's beverage manufacturing. Number 6 is Sawmill Creek. It markets itself as affordable everyday wine for Canadians, priced around $9 to $11. The packaging looks rustic and artisanal. The reality is completely different. Sawmill Creek is owned by Arterra Wines Canada, the biggest wine company in the country. Arterra also owns Inniskillen, Jackson Triggs, and dozens of other brands. And here's something wild. Arterra is owned by the Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan. Yes, a pension fund owns your wine. The ingredients are where things get concerning. Arterra doesn't share full ingredient lists, but industry experts say they likely use mega purple, which is a grape concentrate additive used to make wine look darker. They also use sulfites at the highest legal amount and potentially use animal-based fining agents like fish bladder or gelatin that don't have to be listed under Canadian law. In 2019, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency found labeling problems across multiple Arterra products. The issue? Products labeled Product of Canada that didn't actually meet the requirements. Here's the thing about Sawmill Creek. At $9 to $11, you might think it's a good deal. It's not. You're getting the absolute minimum that can legally be called wine, with hidden additives and questionable sourcing, from a corporation that sees wine as a commodity, not a craft. Number 5 is Copper Moon. It positions itself as premium, internationally sourced wine available only in Canada. The labels look elegant with moon imagery and fancy wine names. The bottles cost $12 to $15, not cheap, not expensive. Middle pricing. That suggests quality. Copper Moon is owned by Andrew Peller Limited, Canada's second biggest wine producer. Peller also controls Peller Estates, Trias, and Wayne Gretzky Estates. Peller is a public company, and their financial reports reveal something interesting. Even though they own significant vineyard land, they source most of their wine from bulk imports. According to their own annual reports, Andrew Peller sources wine and juice from various international markets, including the United States, Chile, Argentina, Australia, and South Africa. Copper Moon specifically claims to source from premium growing regions, but the exact details remain deliberately unclear. The problem with Copper Moon isn't just mysterious sourcing, it's the quality for the price. Independent wine analysis suggests heavy processing, micro-oxygenation to artificially soften tannins, reverse osmosis to adjust alcohol levels, and substantial use of oak alternatives like oak chips or liquid oak essence instead of real barrel aging. You're paying $12 to $15 for wine that's been industrially manipulated to taste like it's worth $12 to $15, when the actual juice inside costs the company maybe $2 to $3 per bottle. The markup is stunning, and you're getting a heavily processed product. In Europe, many of the additives used in wines like Copper Moon would need to be disclosed on the label. In Canada, complete darkness. Number 4 is Black Cellar. It markets itself as authentic New Zealand wine, emphasizing the Kiwi origin story, the ocean climate, the quality of New Zealand grape growing. The bottles cost $16 to $19 in Canada, premium pricing that suggests you're paying for genuine New Zealand quality. Here's reality. Black Cellar is owned by Accolade Wines, an Australian company that is itself owned by the Carlyle Group, a massive private investment firm. Accolade makes over 20 million cases of wine every year across dozens of brands. They're one of the largest wine companies on Earth. In 2016, Accolade Wines was fined in Australia for misleading labeling about vintage dates on wines. While this didn't specifically involve Black Cellar, it shows the corporate culture. Maximize profit, minimize honesty. Black Cellar wines go through extensive processing to make sure every vintage tastes identical. That sounds good until you realize it means the wine is stripped of natural character and regional flavor. Techniques include industrial filtration that removes natural sediment but also removes taste, use of factory-made yeast instead of natural fermentation, and aggressive fining with agents that may include milk protein, egg whites, or clay. For people with dairy or egg allergies, this is a real problem. And in Canada, none of these fining agents have to be disclosed on the label. You're paying nearly $20 for industrially processed wine from a private equity-owned corporation, marketed as small-batch New Zealand authenticity. The gap between what they say and what you get is enormous. Now we hit number 3, Barefoot. It's everywhere. It's the best-selling wine brand in North America, known for casual, fun branding and shockingly low prices, often $10 to $13 for a huge 1.5-liter bottle in Canada. The marketing suggests easy, uncomplicated enjoyment. What you're actually drinking is one of the most heavily manipulated, additive-loaded wines on the market. Barefoot is owned by E&J Gallo, the largest family-owned winery in the world, producing over 70 million cases every year. Gallo operates more like a beverage factory than a winery. Their scale is industrial. Their methods are industrial. Their product is industrial. The sugar content in Barefoot wines is extreme. Their pink Moscato contains about 120 to 140 grams of sugar per liter. That's 24 to 28 grams per glass, more sugar than a Red Bull energy drink. Even their Pinot Grigio, marketed as a dry white wine, contains 6 to 8 grams per liter, which is actually off dry, not dry at all. But sugar is just the beginning. Independent lab testing has found that wines like Barefoot contain high levels of sulfites, often at or near the 350 parts per million legal limit in North America. For comparison, European rules cap sulfites at 200 to 250 parts per million for most wines. High sulfite levels can trigger headaches, allergic reactions, and breathing problems in sensitive people. Then there's the question of hidden additives. Industrial-scale wines like Barefoot routinely use mega purple for color enhancement, tartaric acid to adjust sourness, oak essence for flavor, and commercial enzyme products to clarify the wine and keep it stable for mass shipping. In 2018, Gallo faced a class action lawsuit claiming that wines including Barefoot contained undisclosed levels of glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup weed killer. The lawsuit cited independent lab testing that found glyphosate residues in multiple Gallo wines. While Gallo denied the claims and the case was eventually dismissed on technical grounds, the testing results were never publicly proven wrong. Barefoot represents everything broken about industrialized wine: hidden ingredients, excessive processing, corporate secrecy, and marketing that hides reality. You're not drinking wine. You're drinking a wine-flavored beverage engineered for mass consumption. Number 2 is Apothic. This is the brand that tricks health-conscious consumers into thinking they're making a smart choice. Apothic, also owned by E&J Gallo, markets itself as mysterious, bold, and craft-oriented. The Gothic label design, the darkly romantic branding, the winemaker's blend language, it all suggests artisan quality. The $14 to $17 price point reinforces the idea that you're buying something premium. You're not. You're buying another mass-produced Gallo product, made at the same industrial scale as Barefoot, just with a higher price tag and fancier marketing. Apothic Red, the main blend, contains about 16 to 20 grams of sugar per liter. That's dessert wine levels of sweetness in a product marketed as a dry red table wine. This is deliberate. The sugar makes the wine immediately easy to drink for consumers who might find truly dry wines too harsh. It's engineered for broad appeal and repeat buying. The ingredient manipulation goes further. Apothic wines are heavily oaked using oak staves, oak chips, and liquid oak extracts instead of actual barrel aging. These are techniques that add oak flavor without the time and cost of real barrels. They're also subjected to micro-oxygenation and reverse osmosis to control texture and alcohol levels with factory precision. But here's the most sneaky part. Apothic markets itself to women, to younger consumers, to people who want to feel sophisticated but aren't experienced wine drinkers. The branding is designed to make you feel like you're making an elevated choice when you're actually buying manipulated, sugar-heavy, mass-produced wine that costs Gallo maybe $3 per bottle to make, and they're selling it to you for $15 to $17. Apothic is a fake premium brand. It's a trick. And it works because Canadian rules allow Gallo to hide the ingredient list, the sourcing, the additives, and the processing methods. And now, number 1. The worst offender, Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc. This brand represents everything broken, deceptive, and exploitative about the wine industry in Canada. Kim Crawford is positioned as authentic New Zealand wine, specifically Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, one of the most celebrated wine styles in the world. The marketing emphasizes the Kim Crawford name as if it's a family winery, a small producer, a passionate individual winemaker. None of that is true. Kim Crawford is owned by Constellation Brands, one of the largest alcohol corporations in the world, with yearly revenues exceeding $9 billion US dollars. Constellation owns Corona, Modelo, Robert Mondavi, Simi, and dozens of other brands. They are a publicly traded, profit-maximizing corporation. Kim Crawford, the person, the actual winemaker, hasn't been involved with the brand since 2006 when he sold it to Constellation. He now runs a different winery and has publicly said he no longer drinks Kim Crawford wine. The brand is using his name and legacy to sell factory-produced wine that barely resembles the wines he originally made. The production scale is massive. Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc is one of the best-selling New Zealand wines in North America, with millions of bottles made every year. This isn't small-batch winemaking, it's factory production. The quality is aggressively manipulated to achieve brand consistency. Every bottle must taste identical to maintain brand identity, which means industrial filtration, factory-made commercial yeast instead of natural fermentation, sulfite levels at the upper limits, and routine use of fining agents including potentially animal-derived products that aren't disclosed. But the real betrayal is the price. Canadians pay $18 to $20 for a bottle of Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc. Americans pay $12 to $15 US dollars. Australians pay the equivalent of $13 to $14 Canadian. New Zealanders themselves pay less than Canadians for their own wine. Why are we paying a 40 to 50% premium? Because provincial liquor monopolies add massive markups, and Constellation knows Canadian consumers have limited access to alternatives. We're a trapped market, and they're exploiting it. You're paying over $20 for a lie. So what should you actually drink? If you want real, well-made, minimally processed wine in Canada, here's where to look. First, VQA Ontario and BC wines from small producers. Look for wines with the VQA mark, which stands for Vintners Quality Alliance. This guarantees 100% Canadian fruit from specific regions. Seek out smaller wineries like Taw's Winery in Ontario, Tantalus Vineyards in BC, or Pearl Morissette in Niagara. These producers practice minimal intervention winemaking, which means natural yeast fermentation, minimal sulfites, and no industrial processing. Yes, you'll pay $25 to $40 per bottle, but you're getting genuine craft wine, full transparency, and you're supporting small Canadian producers. Second, certified organic and biodynamic wines. Look for USDA Organic, Demeter Biodynamic, or EcoCert certifications on the label. These certifications require disclosure of additives and prohibit most industrial processing methods. Brands like Frey Vineyards from California, Bonterra from California, or French organic imports from regions like Côte du Rhône offer better quality at $18 to $25. Third, European imports from cooperative producers. French, Spanish, and Italian wine cooperatives often produce excellent wines at fair prices because they're not profit-maximizing corporations. Look for bottles in the 16 to 24 range from regions like Languedoc-Roussillon in France, Rioja in Spain, or Puglia in Italy. These wines undergo less manipulation because European rules are stricter. Let's be honest, these options cost more, but you're paying for actual wine, made by actual winemakers with actual transparency. The $10 bottle is cheap for a reason, and that reason is it's filled with hidden additives, excessive processing, and manipulated ingredients. Let's connect the dots across everything we've covered: 7 brands. Same pattern every time. Corporate consolidation, regulatory darkness, hidden ingredients, excessive processing, deceptive marketing, prices that don't match quality. Whether it's Yellowtail's industrial sugar levels, Sawmill Creek's pension fund ownership and labeling problems, Copper Moon's bulk import reality hidden behind premium positioning, Black Cellar's private equity ownership pretending to be Kiwi authenticity, Barefoot's extreme additives and potential weed killer contamination, Apothec's false premium targeting unsuspecting consumers, or Kim Crawford's complete betrayal of its artisan origins, the story is always the same. 3 companies control most of what you drink. Rules protect them, not you. Labels hide more than they reveal. And Canadians pay more for lower quality because our market is trapped. The wine industry in Canada operates on keeping you in the dark and weak regulations. And until we demand better, demand ingredient labeling, demand additive disclosure, demand honest marketing, nothing will change. Here's what you can do right now. First, check ownership. Before you buy a wine, search the brand online. Find out who actually owns it. If it's a massive corporation, reconsider. Second, look for certifications: VQA, organic, biodynamic. These aren't perfect, but they indicate higher standards and better transparency. Third, ask questions. Talk to staff at independent wine shops. They know which brands are genuine and which are corporate facades. The big liquor stores won't help you because they stock what makes them the most money. Fourth, support small producers. Yes, it costs more, but you're voting with your wallet for a different kind of industry. Fifth, demand rule changes. Contact your provincial representatives. Tell them you want ingredient labeling on wine. Tell them you want additive disclosure. Tell them Canadian consumers deserve the same transparency that Europeans and Australians get. This isn't just about wine. This is about how the entire food and beverage industry operates in Canada. Corporate concentration, regulatory capture, information darkness, consumer exploitation. The same pattern plays out in beer, spirits, packaged foods, meat, dairy. Every category is dominated by a few massive corporations that profit from keeping you in the dark. Next video, I'm investigating the craft beer industry in Canada. You think you're supporting local breweries? Wait until you find out how many craft brands are actually owned by Labatt and Molson Coors. The deception goes even deeper than wine. If this investigation changed how you think about wine, share it. Send it to someone who needs to know. Comment below with which brand shocked you the most or which brands you think I should investigate next. Subscribe if you want more investigations like this. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to tell you the truth that the industry doesn't want you to know. Thanks for watching. Drink better.